Why there is a surge of Chinese power? That China is emerging or has emerged as a center of power. Recently, the Chinese government announced to increase its defense expenditures 7.5%. That is 230 billion US dollars a year. 230 billion dollars US dollars a year will be the Chinese defense expenditures in 2023-24. And then, of course, it's not only in terms of defense expenditures that the Chinese power is surging, it is also in the field of diplomacy. That recently in the UN, China presented its 12-point peace plan for Ukraine, to end war in Ukraine. Critics, particularly Western countries, even Ukraine, rejected that peace plan. And they said that the peace plan is just to support the Russian aggression over Ukraine. The Chinese peace plan, 12-point peace plan, basically centered around negotiations to make sure that there will be a ceasefire, post-conflict settlements, non-interference, non-intervention, and then to implement a machinery to implement possible peace treaty between Ukraine and Russia. However, those who opposed the Chinese peace plan over Ukraine, they argued that it is not a Ukrainian peace plan for Ukraine or to end war in Ukraine, but is another plan, subtle way. China wants to attack Taiwan. That how Russia attacked Ukraine, China wants to do the same thing. The only difference being that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Ukraine emerged as an independent state. But China has not recognized Taiwan as an independent country. It considers Taiwan as its part, integral part. Therefore, the covert Chinese designs that by increasing military expenditures $230 billion, primarily to absorb Taiwan peacefully, and if not peacefully, then by force. And of course, it is the age-old Chinese dream as far as the unification of China is concerned. China as one country. So China was able to get like Hong Kong, Macau, and now it is waiting that Taiwan, which is not an ordinary country, it has military backing, nuclear backing in the United States. It's a rich country. It will not accept the Chinese attack or aggression, and it will basically culminate into the outbreak of Third World War. So the Chinese diplomacy is primarily to wait. Patience, patience and patience. That is what is the bottom line as far as Chinese vision is concerned. Now there is still a gap between the Chinese military expenditure of $300 billion, and the US military expenditures $800 billion. The American economy, the US economy is $21 trillion. The Chinese economy is $16 trillion. So China is number 2. And certainly, the Chinese leadership has a vision, BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, to primarily invest, provide assistance to developing countries, particularly in Africa, in a big way. The Chinese investments in Africa. Alarmists, they basically argue that how China has exploited various third world countries, whether in Africa or Central Asia or even in case of Pakistan, Sri Lanka. But that is how big powers behave. The difference between China and other Western powers, that China tries to transfer technology. China helps all such countries, poor countries, in the process of industrialization and the modernization of infrastructure, as it has done in case of Kenya. The metro train, high-speed train in Kenya from Nairobi to Mombasa, and in many, many other African countries, and even in case of Pakistan. So when we talk about the surge of Chinese power, it is not like the hard power in terms of the US or Russia or other Western powers. China's emphasis is on soft power, diplomacy, aid, trade, technology. That is how the Chinese, they are basically expanding their influence, and it makes sense. And no way China is interested in getting itself bogged down as far as various armed conflicts are concerned. And that is what is the difference between the Russian and the Chinese approaches. Because China has been advising Russia to go slow over Ukraine, not to get itself bogged down, as it has been the clever, shrewd strategy of the West to transform Ukraine as a Vietnam of Russia, as a bleeding wound of Russia. That Russia sinks deeper and deeper in the quagmire of Ukraine. Physical, material losses, enormous. China is not interested. China has not fought any war, has not intervened in any country since 1979. The last war which China fought was against Vietnam in January 1979, and then it withdrew from Vietnam and decided not to, because its goal is to emerge as a world power, which it has been able to. It cannot afford to. Like India, its relations with Pakistan, and of course conflicts with its western neighbor Pakistan. With China also India has conflicts, but Pakistan, it's a terrible case, because Pakistan's only eastern neighbor is India, and India's only western neighbor is Pakistan, and these two countries are bogged down. Cold War, low intensity conflict, which China is not. China wants to focus on its economy and technology and development, and China has been able to pull 400 million people from poverty line. That is the achievement of China. So therefore, The surge of Chinese power is not tantamount to hostility or destabilizing world order. No. China wants stability, China wants peace, and through that it wants to penetrate more and more as far as the world economy is concerned, the world technology is concerned. And its Belt and Road Initiative is a masterpiece of innovation. So therefore, I think alarmists, they are wrong when they calculate or they project the surge in the Chinese defense expenditures to $230 billion as a sign of instability. No. Had this been the case, then the US $800 billion of defense expenditures, I think more than enough to destabilize the world. Thank you very much.